The episode begins with several police officers shooting at a member of the Green Lantern Corps named John Stewart. One of the officers asks for backup as he gets knocked down. None of their attacks affect him, and he forms a giant broom using his Green Lantern ring. He sweeps away the police officers and forms an umbrella to defend himself from the helicopters that are shooting him. He then knocks the helicopters out of the sky using a fly swatter and continues moving. The police officers try to defend a bank vault as John makes his way inside. They point their guns at the entrance and begin shooting as John breaks through the ceiling. John grabs the officers in a net and throws them away. He breaks the vault open and enters as he sees a large amount of gold. Several reporters and news agencies rush to the bank and see a large beam of light emerge. The gold from the vault begins floating through the beam of light, and John flies with the gold. An officer instructs his colleague to try and stop John, but the man informs him that John is a Green Lantern, and there's nothing that they can do to stop him. John then smiles as he flies away with the stolen gold. The following day, a young boy named Virgil Hawkins sits in the dining room and complains as he reads the newspaper. Robert, who is his dad, walks into the room and asks him if he is complaining about the food he made. Sharon says Virgil doesn't appreciate how difficult it is to make good food. She then takes a bite out of the food and realizes it isn't sweet. Virgil tells them he is talking about an article in the newspaper and shows his dad. Robert sees that it talks about how the Green Lantern has become a criminal. And Virgil says the Green Lantern would never stop being a hero to become a criminal. Sharon tells him not to be naive because the Green Lantern is one of his heroes, and Virgil says she is naive because she believes something she read in a newspaper. Virgil then gets up and leaves as he picks up some books. Meanwhile, a train moves toward the city, and John Stewart, who appears to have received a lot of damage, stares at his Green Lantern ring. He jumps out of the train as it moves and walks to the city named Dakota. Virgil, who's secretly a superhero named Static, flies around the city with his friend Gear, and Gear tells him that pictures don't lie. He says that people actually saw Green Lantern robbing the bank, and Static suggests that they were under mind control. They hear a loud explosion and rush to the scene. John empties a truck that's loaded with microchips and says they are the miracle of modern science that is more valuable than gold. He laughs as he takes the chips, and Static and Gear fly to him. John drops the van on the ground, and Static asks him what he is doing. He says John is taking what doesn't belong to him and asks him why he is stealing. John says he's tired of living the way he does and says he wants to use the power he has for himself. Static says he's a hero and shouldn't be stealing, and John tells him he will understand when he's older. Static says he will never turn evil and asks John to return the stolen chips. John grabs the chips and throws them at Static, knocking him into a building. Gear restrains John with his tech, but John easily breaks out and knocks him down. Static rushes and catches him before he falls to the ground, and he flies back to John. He attacks John with his electricity, but John protects himself. He then hits Static through a building and throws him into a pile of garbage. Some journalists begin taking pictures of Static, and John flies away as he laughs. A strange Green Lantern construct knocks John down, and he falls into a car dump site. He emerges from the ground, and John, who has taken damage, hovers to him. Bruised, John moves around his doppelganger, and his counterpart says he doesn't want to attack because he's trying to save the little energy he has left. Bruised, John then attacks him, but he dodges, and John moves the construct around and knocks him down. He restrains his counterpart to the wall, and he reveals himself as Sinestro, a rogue Green Lantern member. John's ring loses power, and Sinestro breaks from his restraint. He attacks John as he runs away and uses a large piece of metal to hold him down. John says there will be more Green Lanterns after him, and Sinestro says he doesn't want to destroy John, but he wants to destroy his reputation. He uses his power ring to transform himself into John, and John asks how the Guardians allowed Sinestro to join the Green Lantern Corps. Sinestro says he hates the Guardians, and says he will be crazy if he doesn't use his power to conquer the universe. He says he has work to do, and tells John he will regret the day the Guardians gave him his Green Lantern ring. Virgil watches the news with his sister and his dad and sees as they talk about Green Lantern's crime spree. They show how Static got humiliated by John, and Virgil turns off the television. Sharon tells him she was watching the television, and he says he never wants to hear about the Green Lantern again. Robert notices he's taking the situation personally, and says John is only human, and it doesn't hurt to keep an open mind. Virgil says he knows all he needs to know, and that he is done with the Green Lanterns. He then walks out of the house and slams the door. Static flies with Gear, and they are shocked that John turns evil. Sinestro hides behind a building and watches as Static and Gear fly around. He transforms into John and attacks them as he flies. Static and Gear fall to the ground, but some bushes break their fall. Sinestro emerges and flies toward them, but they block him with a billboard. He destroys the billboard but doesn't find them, and Gear hits him with an explosive. He tries to attack Gear, but Static hits him, and he begins flying away. Static calls him a thief and a coward, and they begin to pursue him. They are unaware that he is Sinestro, and John emerges as he runs toward them. Sinestro sees John and knocks the duo into a building. He flies to John as John shoots energy beams at him, and he flies into an alley. John enters the alley but doesn't see Sinestro. Static and Gear attack him, and he tries to explain they are attacking the wrong person. Static refuses to listen to him as they continue attacking, so he uses an energy construct to restrain them. He tells Static and Gear that they'll have to listen to him, and Static says John has nothing to say that he is willing to hear. John's ring loses power and he's unable to maintain the construct that holds the duo. They attack him as he moves around and they dodge his laser beams. Sinestro hides as he watches the ensuing fight. Static and Gear hide behind a wall, and Static says he is still a thief as Gear says he isn't a coward. They fly into the sky as John arrives, and his power ring loses power, causing him to fall to the ground and land in a playground. Static and Gear land beside John, and he protects himself from Static's attacks. Static uses his powers to break John's shield, and John tries to explain as he holds Static's shirt. Static says he's done believing in bogus heroes, and he electrocutes John, knocking him out in the process. The police then arrive as Sinestro smiles and watches. He opens the police van as they take John away and see John in chains. John asks him what he wants, and Sinestro asks him for his power ring. John refuses to give it to him, and Sinestro scans his body. He realizes that John isn't with the ring, and says there aren't many places he could have hidden it. John asks him why he wants his power ring and says it's out of power. Sinestro says he will keep it as a trophy and reveals that he has a necklace of several Green Lantern rings. He then shuts the van's door as he flies away. Static talks to Gear on a building and says he doesn't understand why John would become a criminal. Gear says he doesn't understand why John didn't recharge his power ring. Static tries removing his board from his pocket, and John's ring falls out. He realizes that John put it in his pocket as he was asking Static to believe him. Gear asks him why John would give him his ring, and he says he's going to find out. John sits in a prison cell, and Static flies to the window. He asks John why he put his ring in his pocket, and John asks if he will believe him. John says he received a distress call from a ship that crash landed on an asteroid a few days ago. He decided to recharge his power ring so he could take the astronaut to a hospital, but Sinestro suddenly attacked him and took his power source. He used his power source to transform his yellow ring. John says he followed Sinestro's trail while saving energy on his ring, but was forced to use it when Static and Gear attacked him. Static asks John why Sinestro hates him so much, and John says Sinestro was a Green Lantern, but he became power hungry. He asks Static if he believes him and stares at the ring. Later, Static returns to his hideout and sees Sinestro restrain Gear. Sinestro asks Static for John's ring, and Static throws a ring at him. He then realizes that Static gave him a fake ring, and Static attacks him as he blocks it using a shield. Static flies around him but gets knocked out of the building. He asks Static for John's ring, and John says Sinestro will have to take it from him. Sinestro's shocked as he sees John but smiles and makes himself look like John. He tells John that his ring is out of power and shoots at him, but John creates a shield to defend himself. Sinestro is shocked as he sees that John's ring still has power. and John says Static used his electricity to recharge his ring. He says the energy is different, but it still works, and he knocks Sinestro down as he tries to attack Static. Static decides to help John fight Sinestro, but John instructs him to help Gear as he says his fight with Sinestro is personal. John flies to Sinestro, who tries to grab him with a giant hand, but he overpowers Sinestro and knocks him down. Sinestro tells John that he'd love to keep fighting, but John has other things to do. He then destroys a billboard and tells John to choose between saving the people under the billboard or fighting him. Static and Gear tell John to continue fighting as they rush to stop the billboard from hitting the civilians. John gathers several objects and knocks Sinestro into a shipping crate. Sinestro breaks out and they begin to duel using the energy from their rings. John notices that Sinestro's ring is running out of power and says he has an unlimited source of energy. Static begins to recharge John's ring, the damages to John's suit are fixed, and John thanks Static for his help. He then flies away with Sinestro, and Static says John is definitely a hero. The end. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. We'll see you next time.